Hey, no, no.
Got you beat.
We are the stars, the bright and morning stars, with the power to be seen across the world. We're not the future, we're the present. Invest in us and you will see the world is changing.
Because our bodies and the future we hold it. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Everyone will always be here to sing.
We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a choice. We on the ground in every area. We're the ones to make a world a better place. We want the best, we want the way. And there's something for a future so bright.
Because our bodies, and the future we holding. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Cause the boys we always be fine.
We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a choice.
We gon' climb up and then rise up. Won't keep our eyes shut, we ain't got enough. I know you tired of seeing things the same way, but in time you realize that things change. We the demographic dividend. You see the work that we putting in. I'ma stay true to me and use my opportunity to show you how to build a community with unity.
உன் வாழ்வு உந்தன் கையில், எதிர்காலம் உன் கண் முன்னில். மனதையும் உடலையும் பாதுகாப்பாய். வேண்டும் வேண்டாம் என்று சொல்ல உனக்கு மட்டும் உரிமை உண்டு. தேவையில்லா குழப்பம் நீக்க வெவ்வேறு பல வழிகளும் உண்டு. உதவக்கரங்கள் உண்டு, முன் வந்து சொல்வாய் என்று. உதவக்கரங்கள் உண்டு, நீ முன் வந்து சொல்வாய் என்று. இன்றே முடிவு செய், உடல்நலத்தை உயர்த்தி வை. இன்றே முடிவு செய், உடல்நலத்தை நீயும் உயர்த்தி வை.
Because our bodies, and the future we hold. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Girls and boys will always be fine. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a choice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world telling everyone that we demand a choice.
power to be seen across the world. We're not the future, we're the present. Invest in us and you will see the world is changing.
Because our bodies and the future we hold it. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Everyone will always be here to sing.
We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a choice.
We on the ground in every area. We're the ones to make a world a better place. We want the best, we want the way. There's something for a future so bright.
Because our bodies, and the future we holding. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Girls and boys, we always be fine.
We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a choice.
We gon' climb up and then rise up. Won't keep our eyes shut, we ain't got enough. I know you tired of seeing things the same way, but in time you realize that things change. We the demographic dividend. You see the work that we putting in. I'ma stay true to me and use my opportunity to show you how to build a community with unity.
உன் வாழ்வு உந்தன் கையில், எதிர்காலம் உன் கண் முன்னில். மனதையும் உடலையும் பாதுகாப்பார். வேண்டும் வேண்டாம் என்று சொல்ல உனக்கு மட்டும் உரிமை உண்டு. தேவையில்லா குழப்பம் நீக்க வெவ்வேறு பல வழிகளும் உண்டு. உதவக்கரங்கள் உண்டு, முன் வந்து சொல்வாய் என்று. உதவக்கரங்கள் உண்டு, நீ முன் வந்து சொல்வாய் என்று. இன்றே முடிவு செய், உடல்நலத்தை உயர்த்தி வை. இன்றே முடிவு செய், உடல்நலத்தை நீயும் உயர்த்தி வை.
Because our bodies, and the future we hold. We want for you to see that everybody can win. Could it be education or contraception? Girls and boys will always be fine. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a choice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a voice. We are family and we are planning to go around the world, telling everyone that we demand a choice.
We are family and we're planning to go around the world. Dear friends, would like to welcome you all. You're all very welcome to the You're all very welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever it is that you are tuning in from. You are welcome to the private sector session of ICFP 2020, Not Without FP. My name is Fred Javida Chaka, a co-chair of this private sector subcommittee, and I work as the East Africa Social Enterprise Lead with PSI. This is a new subcommittee that was set up in 2020 to amplify the voice and role of the private sector actors, enhance collaboration as we collectively find solutions to the private sector challenges in delivery of UHC and reproductive health access. My co-chairs are Andrea Barr and Maggie Farrow, and there will be moderators of sessions today, so you will have a chance to see them. I would like in a special way to thank the 30 plus highly active members from a range of organizations all over the world that have come together to make this possible. We have a very ambitious program. It will be packed within 80 minutes, in which we hope to reflect the breadth and depth of the private sector, and we trust that you will enjoy it. Unfortunately, because it's a very short time, we're not able to take all the many questions like we would have wanted to and answer them today. But by all means, we will answer your questions. So type them in and we will post the answers later on in the FP community page. So what do we have for you today? We have panelists and a speaker. We have Grace Chuanuka, who will introduce to us the private sector. And we have 3 panels, one exploring the private sector role in advancing UHC and reproductive health access. We have another one of moving reproductive health information and products during COVID-19 pandemic. What did we learn during this period? And we have another panel for you on UNF private sector action for women's health and empowerment in 2021. We threw in an extra one for you, which is voices from the private sector, of the private sector that are coming through to you. My dear friends, COVID denied us the opportunity to meet in Thailand, but the beauty is we have more of you here than we would have been able to have physically. No need for visas, no need for flights, no masks. So at this point, may I please invite you to take off your masks as I invite our first speaker, who is Grace Chuanuka. Grace is the Executive Director of Uganda Healthcare Federation. She also co-chairs the Private-Public Partnerships Technical Working Group at the Ministry of Health. Welcome, Grace. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for the private sector community session to hear the voices of the private sector. Across the world today, urban centers have seen the number of private facilities and service outlets grow by over 350% over the last decade. Diversifying service delivery models to serve both affluent and urban poor in these communities has become a priority for the private sector. As we discuss family planning, as the private sector, we need to be more sensitive to the needs of both genders in this context, as well as youth and other vulnerable groups with physical access challenges, alongside the shifts in mental health needs and the prevalence of gender-based violence. In several countries across the continent, the private sector has come together to form federations. In Uganda, UHF is mirrored in the other countries as an umbrella body representing a wide range of non-state private sector actors, including health facilities, health professionals, medical training institutions, pharmaceutical manufacturers, distributors, retail pharmacies, and so many more. Federations address the challenge of an amorphous and diverse private sector, without which there'd be no mechanism to bring the private sector together, not only to dialogue on common interests, but also on how to address health system challenges and fill service delivery gaps. The Federation offers an informed champion and convergence point for governments and health sector partners to engage and amplify the private sector voice, especially in the policy formulation and initiative implementation process. Umbrella bodies such as UHF offer a platform and partner not only to embed key interventions into the grassroots and adapt them for sustainability, but also to ensure their success and longevity. It is in this same spirit that the ICFP Private Sector Subcommittee has been established to champion the private sector perspective within the ICFP setting. A recent study showed that on average, 34% of modern contraceptive users obtain their method from the private sector, which alongside the public sector contributed to the recent increase in modern contraceptive rate prevalence to 26%. This session is our first opportunity to get a close lens on the various FP private sector stakeholder voices along the value chain in both service delivery and related industries to kick off how we can further leverage private sector engagement in this very important space. The significance of this new subcommittee is reflected in the value umbrella bodies have offered, especially over the last 12 months as we have navigated through the COVID-19 pandemic. Aside from lobbying for meaningful inclusion and understanding of the private sector perspective in the national response, umbrella bodies have been supporting the quantification of the resources in the private sector, supporting capacity building efforts, and repurposing industry to fulfill domestic health system gaps, while acting as a conduit for information dissemination and supporting the delivery of essential services. As we continue to adapt to our coexistence with COVID-19, the existing FP private sector infrastructure in several countries, as we will hear today, has already adapted to meet the community FP needs. So as together we nurture this new ICFP private sector subcommittee to fulfill its mandate, we bear in mind the challenges related to male inclusion and engagement and improving private sector's participation. And with these brief comments, I thank you for joining us today in what promises to be an enlightening and enriching session. Thank you. Over.
Hello, my name is Margaret Farrell, and I'm an independent global health consultant. I recently left USAID, where I served as a private sector team lead. Today, we have an exciting panel focused on universal health coverage, sexual and reproductive health, and the private sector. Let's begin by introducing the panelists. From the Federal Ministry of Health of Nigeria, please welcome Dr. Kayode Afolabi, the Director of Reproductive Health. From Common Health, a purpose-driven company that works to expand universal health coverage and sexual and reproductive health, I'm pleased to introduce co-founder and CEO, Matthew Guilford. And from Pro Familia Colombia, I'm honored to present the Executive Director, Marta Arroyo. The panel will be in this format. Each presenter will have 5 minutes to talk about the context and model, and then there will be one question, the same question that I addressed to all the panelists. They'll have 2 or 3 minutes to answer that question. And as Fred had said at the beginning, we welcome your questions in the box. We will be answering them on our, not in the session, but in our private sector subcommittee ICFP section of the website. So let's begin with Dr. Afolabi. Tell us about the context in your model in Nigeria that connects UHC, sexual and reproductive health, and the private health sector.
Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria being the body responsible for provision of leadership and coordination for Nigerian health system, on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, joined Universal Health Coverage Partnership in the year 2018. And since then, we've been implementing activities and interventions on universal health coverage through our specialized agencies. The universal health coverage strategy of Nigeria is anchored on revitalization of primary health care with a view to ensuring access to quality essential health services in the country. The political economy of health financing is also very important because there is need to reduce the high out of pocket expenses, especially in a low resource setting Nigeria. So we, since like a decade ago, we have been implementing National Health Insurance Scheme. Unfortunately, the coverage remains very low. We also have had some intervention around community-based health insurance scheme, and 12 states in the country had a pilot conducted. Unfortunately, just a few states continue beyond the pilot phase. Again, it's also important for me to mention that we have the Basic Health Care Fund in this country, which has been signed into law to support universal health coverage. And 1% of the total consolidated federation account has been dedicated for basic health care provision under Basic Health Care Fund. But again, operationalizing this act has remained a bottleneck for a few years now. So all this point to one very important segment, which is engagement with the private sector. And in Nigeria, it's been documented that over 60% of market segmentation on sexual and reproductive health, particularly family planning, is provided for by the private sector. So around 2014 to 2016, we had this pilot in collaboration with USAID, with the private health sector facility in 2 states in the country, which were Lagos in the southern part of the country and Kaduna State in the northern part of the country. We were able to document that this engagement with the private health sector could be scaled up. And it's been based on this that we developed the private sector engagement strategy of 2020, which will provide an enabling environment for us to engage more deeply with the private sector beyond just the private health facilities alone, but also to include the organized private sector. I would believe this will address a number of domestic resource challenges that we have on universal health coverage. For instance, the organized private sector and multinational companies have corporate social responsibilities, and they have certain funds dedicated for this. So we could leverage on this, especially if there is a strong enabling environment and there's accountability and transparency for us to address some gap in funding of family planning, commodity procurement, and distribution. Also, the expertise embedded in the private sector could be leveraged on, particularly to support supply chain in family planning. For instance, we know that Coca-Cola is present in every village in Nigeria. So they have an enduring supply chain system. We could leverage on this by partnering with them on last mile distribution. We also went ahead to develop a national time for self-care, maintaining health and community to cope with illness and disability, with or without the support of healthcare provider. So our national self-care guideline of 2020 provides for self-awareness, self-testing, and self-management. This we strongly believe will give individual and community good control on their health, and we also contribute greatly to universal health coverage in the country. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Matt Guilford, who's going to talk to us about some exciting digital solutions in Myanmar and Bangladesh that bring universal health coverage sexual and reproductive health, and the private sector together. Take it away, Matt.
Great, thank you so much, Maggie. And I think we might have a couple slides, so just want to see if we have those up on the screen. Maybe we can go to the first. Great. Well, thank you so much, Maggie. And it's quite difficult to follow Dr. Afolabi, but I will do my best. So as Maggie said, our focus is really on looking at how can we leverage mobile platforms that are used by roughly 5 billion people in the world today to advance universal health coverage. And our primary focus is on LMICs in Asia, and as Maggie said, initially around Bangladesh and Myanmar. And so if we go to the next slide, just to give a bit of context around what UHC and FP at a very, very high level snapshot look like in many of the places where we work. On two of the main dimensions around UHC, access to essential health services and financial protection, there are significant gaps. And in general, what we see are real challenges overall in access, largely driven just by constraints around human resources for health, and getting access to high quality, evidence-based health information and care is a real challenge across emerging Asia. The other thing that I think is notable, even compared to the context of Nigeria and Colombia, is that there are still very high rates of out-of-pocket. And largely with the exception of Thailand, that we see in most places, in most LMICs in Asia, very high rates of out-of-pocket, with Myanmar being the highest at roughly 76% of healthcare spending directly being paid for by families. And as far as the snapshot of FP and how that manifests itself for FP, and again, this is data from a recent study from SHOPS Plus. If we look at sort of old and new being where we were before and where we are now, roughly, what we see overall is, again, with data around Asia, not huge progress in really expanding adoption of FP overall, and that plateauing a bit. And also what we see is still a very large role for the private sector, and that roughly 40% of FP in Asia is being provided to women through the private sector, which is relatively high compared to other parts of the world. We also see that that it's primarily still focused around short-acting methods. And I think one of the challenges that we look at when it comes to financial planning and UHC is the recognition that the private sector will likely continue to play an important role, but how can we create models that provide many options for family planning, both short-acting methods and long-acting reversible methods, to women in an affordable way so that they can exercise choice. And looking at the role that different components around UHC can play in doing that. If we go to the next slide, where we see a real opportunity is that, despite these challenges, that there's incredible progress that's been made, again, both in health access, but also in access to mobile networks, with 5 billion mobile phone users, 3 billion smartphone users, and really looking at how can these platforms support UHC. And a big part of this, obviously, that we spend a lot of focus on is around financial protection. So I think, as Dr. Afolabi said, the private sector plays an important role in provisioning. We believe that the private sector can also play a role in innovative models around financing and in filling some of those gaps. But also what we're seeing, especially now with COVID, new models of care delivery and care coordination, different models for health education. And then, what you see on the right is an example of how we can leverage other platforms to reach people. If we go to the last slide, just a bit about our model and how we've approached this space. Our focus is really on providing a platform that connects different stakeholders and different capabilities within health systems to families. And so our focus is on providing the technology infrastructure and the service delivery model to then increase access to health insurance, working with local partners, whether they be public or private insurers, providing remote primary care through telemedicine, and then also driving linkages into health systems, including exploring areas such as family planning. So, overall, just to conclude, I think we see, a real opportunity for the private sector to contribute to family planning, again, both as helping the private sector deliver even higher quality, more value conscious services, but also leveraging private sector capabilities in areas like health financing and technology to contribute to the cause. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Now we'll hear from Marta Arroyo. She's going to talk to us about social franchising with UHC and sexual and reproductive health in Colombia. Marta.
Hi, good morning or afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. First slides, please. I want to give you a general overview of what we are, what Profamilia is. We are a private nonprofit organization working for 55 years in Colombia towards the defense of the sexual and reproductive rights. We are recognized in our country as a reference organization, a leader in the provision of sexual and reproductive services, responsible, just to give you an example, for lowering down the fertility rate in Colombia from 7.1 children in the 60s to 2.1 children in 2012. Starting 2012, we evolved toward a social enterprise model, looking for innovative ways of improving our sustainability, at the same time accessing new resources, and also strengthening our social programs, thus increasing the impact on the vulnerable population we work with. The model consists of 5 strategic lines of action: Profamilia Health Services, Profamilia Pharma, Profamilia Educa, Research, and Advocacy. Where 2 of them, this is really important. The first 2 ones, Profamilia Health Services and Profamilia Pharma, among both of them, we are bringing today around 86% of our income. How? On the health part, almost all of the insurance companies in Colombia hire us in order to provide sexual and reproductive health services to their affiliates. For them, we operate kind of as a center of excellence with a comprehensive, a differentiated approach to their affiliates. People, just to give you an example, with high-risk conditions, with disabilities, young people, LGBTI, Afro-descendants, indigenous community are able to find differentiated responses according to their needs. And then through pharma, we sell contraceptives and condoms to the main distributors and drug chains around Colombia. All this effort has required that we invest, of course, in innovative practices, for example, marketing and communication strategies, but we have seen the results. Next slide, please. I would like to just to give you a general context also of Colombia. In Colombia, we're a country of around 50 million inhabitants, plus around 2 million regular and irregular Venezuelan migrants. That has meant quite a stress on the system. We do have universal health coverage program where supposedly all of the population is affiliate. And we do also have a health benefit plan which includes family planning as an essential part of the program. However, as it happens in many other countries, we do face access is very unequal, and we do face extreme inequalities in order to benefit from the universal health coverage program. Why does it happen? Because the conditions among rural areas and urban areas are very different, but also some of the challenges have had to do with related to resources. Actually, the system right now is underfunded, and mainly due to many people in Colombia still has informal jobs, so they do not give resources to the system, while at the same time they profit from the health benefits, from the social package of benefits. So that's one of the main reasons why the gaps in inequality still remain after many years of having a universal health coverage. What have we done regarding family planning? under this universal health coverage program. Next slide, please. So we know that when it comes to family planning, facing these challenges of geographical, territorial conditions is the most important issue, because at the end, a universal health coverage should mean benefit for all and not privilege for a few. So what we have done is, under this design of a differentiated approach, we provide services in clinics, but we have also gotten better along the years, providing mobile brigades. And those are just some of the pictures of the mobile brigades that we provide in a year. These mobile brigades today are being paid by the insurance companies, because they realize that in order to reach their affiliates, this is, in most of the times, one of the only ways to do it. Also, being a center of excellence in family planning and having a very holistic approach, we have been better able to accommodate the needs of the population to what it means to have access to family planning, not also under a model of no harm approach. So based on their specific needs, today we are providing around 3 million services in a year. We are developing around 2,000 mobile brigades all around the country. So what we have done is taking universal health coverage program to a superior level regarding family planning. And we have seen the results of the investments that we have made in order to improve our model. We today have a better sustainability program, and we are reaching more people in Colombia, preventing unsafe pregnancies and having more people accessing family planning. Thank you.
Thanks, Marta. I'm now going to ask a question for all of the panelists. My question is, in terms of the models you just described to us, what are the challenges? What are some of the resolutions? And what is the future that you see for these models? Let's start with Matt.
Great. I think it's an excellent question, Maggie. I mean, and obviously, I think something that we could talk about for several hours, but I'll try to give a quick response. I think for us, for the model that we have, obviously, given the nature of health financing where we work, our model really depends upon mobilizing investments from families and households. And so one of the biggest challenges that we have is really around the educational piece for convincing families to see the value of proactively investing in health on an ongoing basis. Especially in contexts where understanding of health insurance may be relatively limited, distrust of financial services may also be a challenge as well. I think what we see is a real opportunity to look at driving this by focusing on everyday value that we can be delivering for our families. And so it becomes less around looking at financial protection in the event of a serious catastrophic event, which many families will discount the likelihood of and choose to deal with as and when needed. But it's really about what we call everyday value. And that's where actually we see family planning as being a real opportunity in some ways, not only to benefit from UHC, but also to drive UHC. Because the reality is that family planning services are, as I think Marta noted, are touch points that people will come in contact with much more frequently than, for example, a serious hospitalization event. And so there's a real opportunity if we can find ways of increasing access and delivering positive value for families when it comes to FP access and other everyday benefits and outpatient services. That really can create a driver for people to enroll in in health insurance and choose to invest and support health insurance. And then just really briefly, as far as the outlook for the future, I do think that the private sector is likely to be even more important. I think on one side, we see a real opportunity around new delivery models for healthcare and for FP, with the broad adoption of telemedicine that's really happening everywhere in the world that we see. And that openness to new delivery models and innovation both from the healthcare provider side, but also from the patient and from the consumer side. I think, and to the credit of governments and regulators, also being willing to embrace those methods. I think at the same time, the private sector will also become critically important because, a lot of what we see and read is that the constraints in the fiscal space for health is likely to become more challenged in the coming years, especially given the economic fallout from COVID-19. And so the private sector will need to step up and contribute to driving UHC in probably a greater way than it would have were it not for the coronavirus pandemic. Over.
Thanks, Matt. Marta, you only have about 1.5 to 2 minutes if we want to keep on schedule. Sorry.
Wow. Oh my God. I wanted like 20 minutes. Well, I would say that I think it's very important that we understand that this is such a huge challenge that we truly need to be absolutely interconnected, the private sector with the public. The governments are the responsibility is to define good policies and norms, ones that definitely have to take family planning into account and to look beyond just maternal mortality. Sexual and reproductive services is much more broader than that. And in that way, the only way to really have a universal health coverage program functioning and taking into account that gender equality that is much needed in our countries, we have to have them working together, each one with a specific role. And definitely, I think, again, that I would like to repeat that we have to understand that what universal health coverage means. It means that everyone has access regarding not only numbers, but also quality. We need services being provided with quality, and that this cannot be a privilege for some, but a benefit for all. Thank you, Maggie.
Thanks, Marta. And Dr. Ofalabi, now you have the last words, challenges, resolutions, and future models in 2 minutes, please. Sorry, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. In Nigeria, there are quite a number of challenges against universal health coverage and also around the private sector engagement. But one very important challenge is the poor coverage of the National Health Insurance Scheme. And to make it worse, the National Health Insurance Scheme minimal initial service package does not provide for family planning commodities and services. It only provides for information around family planning service. This is really a big bottleneck. Also, there is slow pace of establishment of state level or subnational level health insurance. This is making the old scenario even more complex because most services occur at the state level. Then, with all this, there is very poor financing for universal coverage. And unfortunately, also, there is poor engagement with the private sector. Despite the fact that we have a large pool of private health facilities available in the country, and the organized private sector are also willing to be a major player in universal health coverage as far as sexual and reproductive health is concerned in the country. And I look at a situation where if you have a well articulated investment case, for quality, this will address a lot of this robust financing structure. I'm talking about to include mandatory funding from health insurance that will provide coverage across both public and private sector. And this must actually exhibit transparency and good accountability framework. Then in deeper engagement with private sector, we also move us towards the achievement of universal health coverage. So I will also strongly recommend implementation of the National Self-Care Guideline as a new model of healthcare delivery. We have just finalized this. and we are set to start implementation. I will commend this to both national and subnational level for implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're going to turn to a video that really shows the diversity of private sector health actors. Thank you to all the panelists. We can do the video now.
My name is Dr. Agbo John. My practice is in Karo site.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Obet. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya.
Coucou, je suis Daniel Moutembe. Je suis pharmacien.
My area of specialty is midwifery.
Namaste, moi c'est Susmita Pandey, Kathmandu, Nepal.
Je suis le président du syndicat des pharmaciens privés du Sénégal.
I'm living in Kabul,
Mumbai, India.
Madagascar,
Sénégal.
My patients are the clients that live within the vicinity of Jikwe in Nigeria. What we do here mainly is to take care of women that are pregnant during delivery and postpartum. So since we received the training in family planning, that has been of great help to the women around this community.
Both of our patients are pregnant women and children. In a developing nation like ours, a major cause of death in women is related to their reproductive health. So the family planning coming in and other counseling help them a lot to live long. And so we use everything we can to make sure that they get the desired growth.
Alors nous servons les Rwandais et Rwandaises de toutes souches. Nous sommes, comme nous le disons souvent, la dernière ligne de défense entre les patients et leurs médicaments après la prescription médicale des prescripteurs.
Dans le domaine de la planification familiale, je dirais que les pharmaciens jouent un rôle très important. C'est-à-dire, la distribution des produits contraceptifs, c'est assuré par les pharmaciens.
Biggest healthcare needs for women in Nepal is the accessibility of the product and services. And being able to talk to them, go to the community, advise them, that's what motivates me.
If you have a passion for what you are doing, it motivates you to continue doing what you are doing. When I see a client that is down and is now up on her feet again, that's what is giving me the joy of doing what I'm doing.
All right. Wow. I love how the diversity of the private sector comes through in the voices and images we just shared. This is Andrea Baer, and it is my pleasure to introduce the panelists for our next topic, which is moving reproductive health information and products during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our intent is to share brief windows into 3 private sector orientations and solution sets to what many people have faced over the last 12 months. We'll hear first from Mokshada Jain, Program Manager with Sergo Ventures in India, then Ashraful Islam, Assistant Marketing Manager in SEPTA Pharmaceuticals in Bangladesh, and finally, Alexandrina Naganwagi, Project Lead for DISC with PSI in Uganda. After we hear from them briefly, then we'll have a few minutes for questions. Mokshada, over to you. I think we're ready to play Mokshada's comment. Great.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mokshada Jain from Sergo Ventures, and thank you so much for joining today's session. So at Sergo, we've partnered with Clinton Health Access Initiative and NIVI to leverage private digital platforms to support public sector service delivery in Madhya Pradesh in India. Just to set some context and give a background, we spent some time really holistically understanding why households and frontline workers behave the way they do with respect to family planning. And we've generated some deep insights on what drives people's family planning choices. And we've leveraged these findings to develop the intervention that I'll be speaking to in just a minute. So India imposed the world's largest lockdown as response to COVID-19. And with COVID setting in, the demand for family planning further increased. Pradesh, which is a rural state and in general has high unmet need. The state and partners like CHAI have rigorously worked to ensure that services in the public sector on family planning were being provided during the pandemic. So from our data, we know that while families have the desire to avoid pregnancy, there are several barriers that contribute to low intention and uptake of contraceptives. These include that families are not aware of the different choices, what each of those options entail, are concerned about side effects, among other barriers. Family planning is also a largely private decision with very limited interaction with the health system. Again, with COVID-19 setting in, it just made this access to information a lot more challenging. So our approach to overcome these gaps was first to give some direct information into the hands of people to enable them to make informed choices to act upon their family planning goals. Using private platforms, so including Ask NIVI's chatbot, Facebook's digital marketing to address these demand-side barriers and really work as a catalyst and to complement the services of the public services. So the first thing that we did was we had to promote this chatbot, and we took a 360-degree private marketing approach. So right from running ad campaigns on Facebook and Google, and also putting up flyers and stickers on other private channels in high footfall outlets like chemists and grocery stores. Also, we've been rapidly, iteratively message testing, and these have been informed by our Sergo insights, and we've been scaling up the high impact ones. The two-way conversational chatbot of Ask NIVI is available on private conversational platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook. And the basis of the intervention is that, individuals have varying health interests and needs, and we're providing very customized information to help them with their decision making. This service can be availed absolutely free of cost. And while this chatbot really primes people and makes them ready with respect to giving them information about family planning services, improving their perceptions about different contraceptive methods, it also helps them take them to the next level in their health journeys. So if somebody's interested in knowing what are the methods that are suitable for them, they can take a contraceptive screening and learn about those methods. If somebody is ready to avail a service in a facility, we really link them to nearby public facilities where they can receive services. In terms of the lessons that we've learned, one big learning has been that, we've been able to quickly leverage existing private digital platforms. So Ask NIVI's chatbot, Facebook's digital marketing, and really quickly respond and adapt to the requirements of our context. We've been able to rapidly deploy our intervention at scale, and real-time insights that these platforms generate have been allowed us to adapt, refine, and adjust in order to boost uptake. So for example, we could know from what different conversations people are engaging with, what conversations they're not engaging with, and that really allowed us to be iterative in our approach. A well-rounded 360-degree private marketing approach really works well. So digital marketing, say on Facebook, really allowed us to reach mass messaging at scale at a very low cost, whereas some other offline marketing in private channels allowed us to tap into this other demographics or more women, older populations that are not typically captured in the digital marketing space. The other key learning was that, when you give balanced, pressure-free and customized information to people, it really helps them build trust. And again, this speaks to, the platforms, the private platforms who have built their products on years of experience where they leverage UI and UX experience of users. So really improving the user interface and the user experience that products have to offer. Maintaining marketing momentum and ensuring continued engagement can be really challenging. And that's something that we've had to work on. So the space is very crowded. There are different private players that fight, for people's digital intervention, and you need to constantly provide information and content which is interesting and can keep people engaged. In general, we saw that the user was very high, and also the user satisfaction. We had about 2,300 users in 4 districts in 3 months. Also very relevant populations engaging, with 84% of them wanting to prevent pregnancy for more than a year. Over half of them engaged with the family planning method conversation, and 18% of all our users received facility referrals, which is much higher than the industry standard of 6%. Men want to be a part of the conversation. So men, we know, are key decision makers, and programs constantly struggle to engage men. But most of our users, 75% of them, are men. And really, these digital private platforms offer a unique place for men to engage with family planning content. Way forward, we want to, given the novelty of the intervention, we want to generate evidence on its scope, feasibility, and effectiveness, which can be useful for governments and other programs. We want to find efficient ways of onboarding more users and really bolstering user engagement, and eventually aim for wider scale up and integration with the public health system. Thank you so much.
Mokshada, thank you so much. That's the perfect segue in from information into products, because obviously one can't exist without the other. And with that, I'd like to welcome Ashraful Islam from Incepta Pharmaceuticals in Bangladesh.
Hello everyone, I am Ashraful Islam, working as Assistant Manager International Marketing at Incepta Pharmaceuticals Limited. I welcome you all to my presentation. We Incepta Pharmaceuticals Limited was established in 1999 and started operations from January 2000. We are one of the leading generic manufacturer from Bangladesh with more than 1,000 products in our portfolio. Among these products, there are 19 products that falls under reproductive health category in both oral solid and injectable dosage form. During the time of pandemic in February 2020, we have received our first approval of WHPQ for medroxyprogesterone acetate intramuscular injection. So in this 10 months of COVID, we have faced many challenges. So the first challenge was for us was to maintaining safety of our employees, then how we can keep them safe from being infected by COVID-19. And we understood that is our current health and safety environment system isn't robust enough to ensure the safety of our employees. So what we did that is we made a cluster group of employees to limit cross-contamination. As well as also we have introduced a temperature monitoring system at every entry point of our office, and there was a regular disinfection of the office premises. Also, we have established a COVID-19 testing booth adjacent to our workplace, so that whenever people feel any symptoms are showing, they can immediately go there and have their samples tested. Now, making these cluster groups also caused reduced production capacity. So that is why we had to bring maximum output from the limited resources that we were having at that time. So for this reason, we had to give more focus on our core competencies, as well as we have to focus more on priority markets instead of all over the markets. And we had to outsource some services, especially in the distribution sector. The manufacturing capacity didn't decrease only at Incepta, it also decreased at the raw material manufacturer end also. That increased overall lead time of the raw materials. So for this reason, we had to get clearer market forecast, as well as we need to come out of the mathematical inventory formula. So for this reason, what we had to do, that is we introduced a buffer stock concept where we maintain a certain additional stock of raw materials, so that can help us to manufacture certain batches in time of emergency need. And also we have procured global market data from IQVIA to get better idea of the market demand and the forecast. Also, this time of COVID pandemic, what happened, that is the market demand changed drastically. It is due to the healthcare system situation of a certain country, as well as the manufacturing capacity constraint of other manufacturers of reproductive health sector. So we had to adapt quickly to this changed market demand. So what we did that is we improved our online and work from home procedures, as well as we get more focus on competencies then entering a new market, and we've restructured our work process so that we can adapt with this fast changing demand. Also, another notable problem that challenge we have faced is stoppage of international flights. So, and there was only some demand basis cargo flights operating. So we had to get more knowledge about the overall global freight system. And so that is why once we were manufacturing, we had to also put a knowledge of that is when there is the special cargo flights will be operating. And we have to match our manufacturing timeline so that we can catch that flight and meet that market demand on an urgent basis via air shipment. But also we had to give more focus on our sea freight. But once these first and two strategies were not working, what we had to do is we just send the shipment via courier service provided like DHL, FedEx, or UPS. So this time of pandemic, what we learned most is that there are more pandemics that can come in near future, and we had to be better prepared for it. So thank you very much for your time and your patience. Thank you once again.
Ashraful, thank you very much. And our last panelist is Alexandrina from PSI Uganda, project lead for the DISC project.
So, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Alexandrina Nakanwaji from PSI Uganda, and I'll be sharing how we ensured continuity of access to SRH information and services during the COVID-19 pandemic in Uganda. So for a little context, PSI Uganda works in the private sector, providing direct support to 83 private health clinics under the program franchise and 16 youth-friendly services clinics in 23 districts. And we also distribute SRH commodities, that's IUDs, misoprostol, and condoms to a network of over 600 pharmacies in Uganda. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, the country went into full lockdown in March with no public transportation, restricted movement of private vehicles, a curfew, closing of markets and malls and borders. And while the restrictions loosened in June and the borders opened in October, we still do face a few restrictions with movement and gathering in spaces. And these restrictions definitely did affect the kind of support that we are able to provide to our franchise clinics and to the pharmacies where we distribute SRH commodities and services, and also how we reach consumers. So we had difficulty in maintaining access to SRH commodities, which then had us running the risk of stockouts. We had difficulty in offering quality assurance support in the way that we were used to, which was largely observational because of the travel restrictions and also the risk of PSI Uganda staff contracting COVID-19. There's restricted movements of people and health providers, which made it difficult for consumers to access health services and products from health service channels. And with COVID-19 being the priority, SRH and family planning definitely did lose top of mind awareness, which ran the risk of increased number of unplanned pregnancies. So in order for us to keep on supporting the different outlets that we do, we turn to virtual support supervision in the areas of clinical skills, data quality, client records management, making sure that the providers and the clinics do meet infrastructure standards, and also making sure that there's continued access to commodities. And we were able to provide COVID-19 preventive measures and information on that to providers. We're able to continue collecting data from the different clinics and support them in proper client records management. support them in ensuring continued general cleanliness and infection prevention protocols being followed, as well as linking them to the nearest source of commodities for redistribution, especially with the limited movements. We faced a few challenges regarding some of these support supervision areas. With the quality assurance protocols being mostly observational, we realized that there is a need for mixed methods because virtual doesn't cover all the different indicators for quality that need to be covered. And so moving forward, we'd have to blend both methods to be effective in the support we provide. With the quality of data collected, while the data was coming in, the images of that data were not up to par. So we had to support we had to support the providers on the right applications to use to take pictures of that data. And while WhatsApp, which was a major tool of providing support supervision as well as telephone calls, is great for timely dissemination, especially in WhatsApp groups with providers, it can be challenging with meaningful engagement. And also we learned that it's important to schedule virtual support supervision at times convenient for providers, because you tend to believe that because they picked up the phone, they're available, but in order to be able to support them along these supervision areas, you do need to schedule that time. Regarding continued access to commodities to prevent stockouts, we looked at e-retail of some of the products that we distribute at Trust Condoms using commercial sites like Jumia and Safe Border. We also conducted tele-detailing where we used phone calls and WhatsApp to be able to support providers and also pharmacists on being able to use these products and provide the correct information to the consumers, as well as motorbike delivery of commodities, where we hired motorbikes to deliver products to prevent stockouts. So with the motorbikes, this was great for market penetration because they are swift, they're agile, they're able to reach more places. And also because they break down stock from bulk, we were able to meet or add more people to the network. But because they're also third-party contractors, there's a level of unreliability. So it's good for us to invest in organization on motorbikes. There's limitations in e-retail and what commodities can be distributed on e-retail platforms, mainly because of the counseling that is needed to support consumers to users. So we need to explore telemedicine partnerships with e-retail in order to make this effective. And then we also learned that if we can bundle family planning products with health and beauty products, that can create more demand for family planning products. Using digital channels to reach clients with information was also another way for us to continue supporting clients and keep SRH as top of mind. So we used push audio and text messages to support people to have more information. We use the 161 service manned by BIAMO with interactive voice recordings and USSD, and also an option to self-refer to a facility nearest them for services. And we also run a social media campaign, Be Steady, which means I am steady in my choices, to also support this campaign. And through these channels, we're able to reach millions of unique users. But we realized that there's a perceived credibility of online information that affects decision making. And so we need to be able to communicate the credibility of the information that we're sharing, and also to translate content beyond English, which garners bigger audiences. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much to my three panelists. And at the outset, Fred said that we were going to have a rapid pace session, and hopefully you're all seeing that that is indeed the case. Our goal was to show the breadth and depth of the private sector and a wide geographic representation as well. So at this time, I'd like to invite my three panelists back on screen just for a quick follow-up question. So Mokshada, Ashraful, and Alex, if you want to open your video, that would be great. Okay, So first question for you, Mokshada. You talked about the 360-degree private marketing approach. Can you just comment a little bit more on the age group that you were targeting and a little bit about the message testing?
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for that. So I'll take the age group first. So really, the number of users that we had, a majority of portion of them were 18 to 35. So we were getting users, I think 80% of them are from 18 to 34 years of age. And then we had about only 2% that were under 18, but over 15 years of age. So that was the user age group that we were targeting. And also in terms of the messaging, what was really interesting was that we tried a number of different messages, and the messages that kind of evoked people's curiosity seemed to work better. So we had these messages that, do you know there are new family planning methods? Because the government of India, for example, introduced some new methods in the past few years. So those kinds of messages resonated more with the audiences than some of the typical standard traditional messages like small family and happy family, which governments and other organizations have been using in the past. So digitally, things which kind of appeal to broader life goals. So do you know what's the successful formula for a happy life? Again, those kinds of messages did much better than some of the traditional ones.
Thank you, Mokshada. I think that's so powerful and is really talking about taking sexual and reproductive health forward in the future as we need it to be. Ashraful, a quick question for you, as you are our manufacturer represented today from the private sector. Tell us a little bit more about the hard work involved in maintaining product quality, not only during COVID-19, but more broadly.
So actually, in the pharmaceutical industry that we used to follow, we call it a standard operating procedures, that's SOP, for each and every aspect of our manufacturing procedure. So, and we maintain these SOPs all throughout the process. In the time of COVID-19, yes, we had to change some SOPs, but those are mainly on just reducing timeline of approvals and such activities and allowing online approvals. As for example, we have introduced internet-based approval system of our certain documents and items, and in our SOP we have also allowed it. So this way, while your immediate supervisor is working from home, but still you can get your approvals done from that way. But actually, and whatever it takes, we didn't alter any single point of the SOPs that relates to manufacturing the products, testing the quality of the products, and releasing the products after the quality testing is done. So
Thank
this
you
is
so
how
much.
we have maintained. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ashraful, to cut you off. Just in the interest of time. Yeah,
thank you.
Alex, a closing quick question to you, Alexandrina. Can you just comment very briefly on what your learnings from the service delivery innovations might imply for the future?
And that's a great question. And I was actually thinking about it because we are looking to move beyond the adaptations, for example, adapting virtual supervision and blending that with the observational supervision that we do, so that we spend less time in the facilities and support the providers virtually. So that's something that we're taking on. And then this also sparked the need for us to try out e-learning trainings and see how that could go away from classroom. And so that's something that we're currently piloting. So that's really exciting for us. And regarding also service delivery and teledetailing, realize that if we can get alternative methods of getting the product to the different outlets and can carry out teledetailing, that we don't necessarily need to be out there in the field every single day, and that actually reduces the overhead costs for the platform, and that's also exciting for us to explore. So I guess the challenge for us is to get out of the adaptation mode or crisis mode and see how we can embed this in programming moving forward. And so that's what we're taking on right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A huge thanks. I know that there's a lot of interest in these presentations, so we will cover follow-up questions going forward on the website. With this, we're going to cut away to a quick video from our friends at Shops Plus. They made this just for this session. It's really going to highlight how youth and hard to reach individuals are served by the private sector. Over to the video.
Mi nombre es Paola Escorcia, vivo en Bogotá, Colombia. La planificación es importante para mí porque yo tuve un embarazo muy joven, a los 17, por no planificar, por no saber planificar. Yo planifiqué después de que tuve a mi hija, a los 18. Yo decidí ir a Profamilia porque me dieron consejos, me explicaron los métodos anticonceptivos, ahí mismo me hicieron exámenes.
In India, there is a huge unmet information need for family planning overall. Almost 2/3 of the population is under the age of 25. So people have this wide variety of questions. We have created Hello Judy, which is India's first conversational multilingual chatbot, which helps the entire youth of India ask any question that they have in their mind on family planning particularly and making healthy life choices.
Our main mission is to provide sustainable and quality healthcare in remote areas or hard to reach areas. We partner with the community members to set up the medical centers in a sustainable way.
We are a social marketing organization and our target groups, women in remote and hard to reach areas. As a private sector provider, our objective is to ensure that the product and services are available to their nearest pharmacies. Addressing the needs of the women is something that we really need to do, and especially in the context of family planning, where they do not have the accessibility, they do not have the knowledge.
Most of my patients are middle class patients. I suggest my patients to have family planning in order to have a happy life for you, for your husband, for your family, and for your children.
My hope for the future and for the patients is that we are able to reach communities with the correct health information and also in a sustainable manner.
Je veux que chaque enfant qui va naître puisse grandir dans de très bonnes conditions. Et si nous tous nous mettons nos mains, je suis sûr qu'on peut avoir de très très bons résultats à l'avenir.
Thank you. And with that, we will go to our final panel. Pretty exciting. I'm turning this over to David Wolford from the United Nations Foundation. David, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Andrea. I'm David Wofford. I lead private sector action for women's health and empowerment of the UN Foundation. Next slide. Our aim is to drive corporate action on gender equality by pushing business to make public commitments to invest in women's health and safety in their workforces or supply chains. We believe that women's health, starting with reproductive health and family planning, should be central to women's empowerment for business. Considering universal health coverage, it's important to recognize that the business role is not limited to those countries that produce health products and provide health services. All businesses have a role in ensuring that their workers have access to health care. This initiative helps business play this role for women's health through promoting workplace programs, supporting workplace research, documenting the business case, and generating corporate commitments. Next slide, please. Since 2019, 15 global brands and other business groups have made commitments, reaching over 800,000 women. So you can find more about this on our website. Next slide, please. So today I'm pleased to announce 4 new commitments by business entities in India and Kenya. These were made possible thanks to our partner consultants, Samita Social Ventures in India and Keen Solutions in Kenya. Our four commitment makers today are Amalgamated Plantations, the second largest tea producer in India, commits to providing 35,000 women workers and community members health services, including family planning, across 25 tea estates in Assam and North and West Bengal. Arvind, a global manufacturer, commits to providing sexual and reproductive health information services as part of its overall health programming for 12,000 of its workers across 3 states in India. Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa commits to reaching 40,000 community members and workers in medium-sized enterprises, including 20,000 women with health education and services and family planning in 5 countries in East, West, and Central Africa. And finally, Mount Kenya West Women in Coffee, a women-led organization of 50 coffee estates, commits to reaching 50,000 coffee workers with family planning, reproductive health, and other health information and services. So now I'm pleased to introduce our representatives of these businesses for our panel discussion. Please put on your video. Margaret Mithamo, Managing Director of Mount Kenya West. Sija MS, Head of HR, Amalgamated Plantations. Racy Muchila, Head of Novartis. And Neeraj Lal, Head of CSR Arvind. So I'd like to start with Margaret. Why is ensuring that women workers have access to health and family planning important to your business? Need to take your mute off, Margaret. Margaret, I'm going to turn to Neeraj, and he can answer that while you're finding the mute button. Neeraj?
Thank you. Thank you, David. It's a pleasure being here. For us at Arvind, the underlying value system has a firm belief that only in a healthy society can healthy businesses flourish. Similarly, a healthy employee is a happy employee, and happy employee contributes better to the progress of the organization. Across our apparel value chain, majority of our employees are women, and every factory in India has their own program on women's health and empowerment. However, at our head office at Ahmedabad, with our partner Samhita, we have a 240-hour program designed, which is spread over 3 years to take our employees on a blue collar to white collar transformative journey through a 6E empowerment formula, which we say we enroll, we equip them with appropriate skills, we employ them, of course, with statutory salary and social security benefit, health insurance, and other things. But more importantly, take care of their nutrition as they are staying with us and energize them, educate them to ensure that they move on to higher education. Many of them are doing graduation and post-graduation. And over a period of time, in addition to that, give them personal health and hygiene, English education, computer education, digital literacy, career counseling, financial literacy, and all that. This is to ensure that they are fit to explore the world, explore the opportunities within Arvind and beyond Arvind. In addition, for us, we see the well-being of an employee as a whole. The inner well-being for us is as important as the physical well-being. Traversing on a wholesome advancement journey, we focus on our employees meditating. That leads to the physical well-being and inner well-being for them, and ultimately for the benefit of the business. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much. Margaret, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, for the question. About Kenya Women in Coffee is a consultancy company along the coffee value chain. We work with coffee farmers, especially the estate farmers and the cooperative farmers. And you workers in the coffee farm, 70% is comprised of women. And because the work in coffee is quite tedious, they have no time to access or to look for the information on the health services. decided to take one because we the women vulnerable. At the same time, the women
Margaret, I have to apologize to interrupt you. Your audio is not working right now. So I have to, we're not hearing you, so I apologize. Mount Kenya is doing incredible work, working with government and partners and others to bring family planning and health services. I'm so sorry, Margaret. The audio is not working for you, but we so thank you for your commitment. Let me turn to Shija for your response on what you're doing and why it's important to your business.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, David, for this question. Amalgamated Plantations is a Tata enterprise which is known for building the capacity of the community to achieve improved health, education, and livelihood outcomes. We believe that women empowerment is the primary requirement for the success of the organization, where majority is women workforce. Education, good health, and hygiene can help women to be independent and grow greater heights, which ultimately help us to become the top employer, the numero uno producer, and the most reputed heritage and value custodian of Indian tea industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Shija. And Racy, thank you. Your response.
Thank you very much, David, and hi, everybody. So in Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa, the percentage of women workers is approximately 40% of the total headcount, with an aspiration to reach 50% by 2025. This definitely indicates the criticality of women empowerment and reproductive health, which are dual necessities for us. So to just give a bit of perspective, all employees have comprehensive health insurance offering underwriting for general medicine as well as reproductive health. We have ensured equal and equity in Novartis, which has already been implemented, especially for pay for equal work irrespective of the gender. We have very worker-friendly policies like work from home, flexible working times, provision for nurseries and mothers' rooms for breastfeeding mothers, and we've created a conducive environment for female employees to speak up and bring their best to work. We also have some mentorship programs that have been instrumental in developing female leaders with the expectation of linking them to business, small businesses in community, and our social programs to transfer learnings. So with all this and from experience in Novartis, if the above is well managed in the workplace, this will increase overall productivity, create psychological safety for female workers to express themselves without fear, thus ensuring a healthy population in the workplace at all levels of health, be it mental health, physical, emotional, and finally reproductive health.
And Racy, you're doing great work going into the community and training people there. I apologize that we only have time I have to end right now. The only question I have for Shija that might help us is universal access is not just about having healthcare, but having access to it. Women workers in ag and other areas don't often have access. In 20 seconds, can you tell why it's so important and how you're helping women get access to health and reproductive health services?
All right. Well, David, we have our own infrastructure at all our locations. We have dedicated team of medical officers and welfare officers who ensures good health and hygiene of the workforce. They provide quality reproductive health services, emphasizing on institutional delivery, birth control measures, and nutritional needs of pregnant and lactating mothers. We have developed active adolescent girls and boys group in all our locations who have been sensitized on the adversities arising out of the early marriages and pregnancy to strengthen the community health. We give regular skill developed training to the medical staff, welfare officers, and the community health volunteers to upgrade their services providing abilities.
Thank you, Shija. I'm sorry to interrupt. We are out of time, but I want to thank all our panelists for this great discussion. And now back to you, Andrea. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone, for these corporate commitments. It's really exciting, and it's frankly a great way to end our session. And we'll just show our last slide now, just to, again, say a huge thanks. I, along with Maggie and Fred, are extremely grateful to the panelists. We had a very ambitious agenda, as you can see. We hope that you enjoyed the videos. Our point is to show the breadth of the private sector. A special shout out to a few key subcommittee members at those organizations listed. And please get in touch with us. Obviously, the private sector visibility and engagement work is just getting started. So thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you. And I think that will conclude our session for today. So thank you very much.
Power to be seen across the world. We're not the future, we're the present. Invest in us and you will see the world is changing.
Because our